There we go. So, do you want to speed them out, Michael, as I click through them?
Yes. Well, we'll engage the young lady. Once more, we'll ask. The last session when we did the 12-step, someone toward the end of it said they'd like to do a worksheet, and I committed to them to do the 7-step, one that Yinka's put up on the screen today. So if you're here, identify yourself, put your hand up, or else we've got another volunteer and we'll go ahead with that volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go for it.
Yeah.
So is that going to be me?
That's going to be you.
Okay.
You're it, young lady.
I'm it. Okay. I just need to pop to the loo before we start. Is that all right?
Go for it.
All right. Thank you.
Well, in the midst of this, Michael, how about explaining what's going on?
Well, what's going on is this young lady named Yinka contacted me back a few months ago and said, we want to do a study of your book. And I said, great. And I joined her for the first session and did a little explaining, and we got a really powerful response. So we decided to continue with the working with it twice a month. This month, it'll only be the one session. And then from here out, we'll do twice a month, the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday of each month at 3:30 in the afternoon Eastern time, 8:30 in London. We'll do a Why Is This Happening to Me Again book study. So
And
that's what we're.
How are you actually in the room with everybody? Or is this all Zoom?
This is all Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in our little office in Bristol, Virginia.
Okay. And the breakout rooms, is that something that, I mean, I thought this started at 3:30. I didn't hear anything about breakout rooms until, I don't know.
Well, that's just how
4:00.
Yinka starts it out that way. It gives people a couple of minutes to get introduced to each other. So that's
Oh, okay.
what happens.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey,
Can I
delighted
ask a
that
question?
you're here.
Can I ask a general, just a functional question? It's where I am, it's quite late, so I don't know if I'll be able to do all of it. Would it be able to see it somewhere?
Yes, it's getting recorded today.
Yeah, great.
And I'll
So,
share it.
And you'll send it to us, Yinka, and we'll post it.
I'll send it to you, and I'll add it to the WhatsApp group as well for those that are in the WhatsApp group.
Awesome.
And Yinka, can you put the link of the recording in the chat as well for me so I can copy and paste it into my browser? And can you put a link to the worksheet in the chat as well, please? Again, so I can copy and paste.
This chat here.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't put the recording in this chat because it's not recorded yet. It won't be completed till tomorrow.
Oh, you sent it to me by email last time, I remember.
Yeah.
If you could do the same, please.
So
That'll be amazing. Thank you. And can you please put a link up to the worksheet so I can copy and paste it, please? And what is the difference between this worksheet and the other worksheet?
One is the 7-step, the one we're going to do today.
Right.
It's the most current worksheet that I teach from. It has the most important keys in the forgiveness process in my experience. The last time we used a 12-step worksheet, which is the one that I was using 25 years ago when I originally wrote my book and published it. If you go to our website, whyagain.org, there are at least a dozen different worksheets. And, pick the one that's your favorite. And the reason there are different worksheets is because if I took every idea on every worksheet, it would be, bigger than we could handle. And over the last 40 years of developing that worksheet, what I did was I tested and tried different ideas in it, and until I honed it down to what I found worked the best. And that's this 7-step worksheet that we're going to cover today. But there are different ideas in each worksheet. Also, if you want deeper instruction on the forgiveness process, you can go again to our website, whyagain.org. And there's a microphone on the page. If you click the microphone, that will link you into our radio show. And if you drill down, you'll see that there are some links to special radio shows. As there's a link available for that first session that we did on this study group. There's a link to that, so you can go and listen to me guiding somebody through that worksheet. There'll be this one. There are at least 20 different radio shows, and our radio show is called Mind Shifters Radio, where either myself, our associate Dr. Kim Hayes, or my wife Jeannie have walked somebody through the forgiveness process, step by step by step, filling in the worksheet. So there are lots of different instructions available to you. It's all free. Just go to the website and get it. You can also, we have a DVD package. We have different DVDs available that you can purchase from our website. That's not necessary. We're happy to give you everything we've got free. If you want to do something to support us, as Yinka said, there's a link to donate to us, or there's a link on our homepage, and we have a product page. But otherwise, any support we can give you, we're happy to give you. Our radio show, Mind Shifters Radio, goes from 1 till 2 o'clock, 5 days a week. And you're welcome to call into that show. Most people phone into the show if they've got US phones available. And the call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number from 1 till 2 o'clock Eastern time, you'll hear myself and Jeannie having a conversation, much like the one we're going to have today, on how the forgiveness process operates and corollary tools that I've developed and Jeannie has helped develop over the last 50 years. You can also go to your app store on your phone and simply type in the words Heartland, HEARTLAND, one word, Heartland Aramaic, ARAMAIC, forgiveness. And you can do 2 different worksheets, versions of the worksheet live on the app. You can ask questions from the app anywhere, any page from within the app. You can use there's a game called the Drag-On Klingon game, which is designed to introduce kids to the forgiveness process. The commitment is there. There are links throughout the app to our website. So every way we can, we're delivering the materials to you in the best ways we can do it. And there's some of the ways that the materials are available.
Just to say, me and Jeannie have put loads of information in the chat for anybody that wants that information Michael's just said.
Cool. Thank you. So if you're ready to go for it, do you want to start out with the goal? We'll kind of back into this one, as I said, as Jeannie calls it.
Yeah, okay. Is it possible to put a copy of the worksheet up so I can, because what I do is I write it all out longhand.
Right.
It is going to be on screen as we go through the first questions. This is the bit that's just on the first bit of the script and the worksheet. And then obviously as I click through.
Okay, then let's, instead of backing into it, we've already talked about that. Let's go ahead and start out with that first screen. Let's back it up once. Here we are. Oh, you've got a beautiful, nice layout there. So the solution to every problem in your life is to know who you are. Well, I shouldn't say that. It would be to experience who you are. You can know it without experiencing it. And so each worksheet starts out with the acknowledgement of who you are. And so you'll see at the top of the screen, and you fill your name in there. I, Michael, if I were doing a worksheet, who am love, am experiencing. And so now I've done number 1A, and number 1B is, what's the emotion? You've already identified there's a situation going on with your daughter where she's not in touch with you. You found out she's just become a single parent, and you have concerns. So I'll leave it to you to identify what emotion is involved for you, and let's share that with us. Whatever you've decided exactly you're going to work on with your daughter here.
Right. So 1A, I, Gina, who love, I am experiencing. I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety.
Okay, anxiety.
Can I not list the rest?
No, okay, so you'll notice if you take a look beneath that, hostility and fear are from internal corrupt data and indicate my use of what we call sustained incoherence, and I'll explain that. But you'll see this says use a separate worksheet for each emotion. What we're looking to do is to assist people to hunt down the thought disorders that they have that take them out of the truth of who they are. Resolve and move through those thought disorders so that they can come to an actual experience of who they are. And each emotion links to and tells us that there's a different thought disorder involved in this situation. So I could have a dozen different emotions running. And if so, that means that in order to produce this thing I call perception, the way I think and feel about what's happening with my daughter is based on a variety of different energetic patterns we call thoughts. I want to identify them one at a time and work through them one at a time. If I try to do all 12 of them at the same time, I'm going to get mass confusion and I'm not likely going to get very far. So let's just start with that first one.
Anxiety.
Okay. So anxiety would be a form of fear. So you'll note we're saying that hostility and fear are from internal corrupt data and indicate my use of sustained incoherence to build this disturbing internal construct. Sustained incoherence is a term that was coined by a physicist named David Bohm. David Bohm worked with Einstein back decades ago, and he actually did some of the math that helped them to, as a physicist, to develop the atomic bomb. He was a pretty bright guy. He also worked in the arena of spirituality psychology, and he identified a problem that humans have that I happen to agree with, and that is that we think a certain way and produce disturbance in ourselves. We work to avoid being aware that we are doing that to ourselves, and we keep doing it. And David Bohm called that sustained incoherence. So
I'm very worried about my grandson. He's only 2.5, and he's got, a new baby sister. Yeah. The partner has left. He wasn't his dad, but, he had a male figure in his life. My daughter is grieving her brother, my son, who died last October.
Okay. So let's put a hold. Let's slow down a bit. So notice that what I'm hearing is, and I understand it, you'd like to resolve everything in your life on this worksheet right now. Your grandson, your new baby in the family, what happened with your son. I mean, it'd be nice to clean it all up at once, but guess what's going to happen? There's going to be mass confusion. We're not going to get anywhere. So what my request is that we stay with the format of the worksheet and use this as a way to discipline yourself as you're doing your work. This sheet will take you to the root of this piece of your issues. And if you try to do 2, 20, 50, 100 issues in one sheet, you're not likely going to get anywhere. So if you get onto other topics, I'm going to keep doing my best to gently bring you back and stick with your anxiety around what's happening, or what your mind tells you is around what's happening with your daughter. Is that okay? Does that work for you?
Yeah, because I can't contact her. I don't know where she lives, and she doesn't answer her phone.
Okay, so let's stay with the format of the worksheet. So now you've got the idea of sustained incoherence, correct? Does that make sense for you?
No, it doesn't actually.
Okay, so under the surface, I have a certain way of thinking, a certain thought disorder. I would rather focus on something or somebody out there and not deal with this, so that I can keep doing this inside of me and stay in my pain and my turmoil and my trauma. I'm offering that is basically what David Bohm described as sustained incoherence. I'm going to ask you to come out of that state, and we're going to stay with this emotion that you identified as anxiety. And we're going to use this as a system to concisely move deeper and deeper into your own unconscious dynamics and open the space where you can resolve and free yourself from the sustained incoherence of anxiety. I can bet from just a few things you told me and shared with me that this isn't the first time in your life you've had anxiety.
No, no, I was very anxious when my son was ill, and yeah.
We could probably go through a list of 1,000 different times, right?
Mm.
There's a book about that. It's called Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And the reason it happens again and again and again is because we refuse to own, to look at, and resolve our sustained incoherence. This is a format for resolving that. Not everything in your life, just this one piece of the puzzle. Then, maybe this evening before you sleep, you'll do another piece of your puzzle. And maybe tomorrow morning you'll get up and you'll do another piece. And then maybe at noon you'll do another and another and another. If you will systematically, consistently, and persistently do that, guess what's going to happen? Anxiety is going to disappear from your life. Things are still going to happen that you may not like, but your anxiety is not about your daughter or your son or anything else that's happening in your world. Your anxiety is about what's happening inside of you. And notice that you can keep the conversation going on about things out there. And what I'm going to keep inviting you to do is to keep coming back in here, which is what this worksheet's for. Are you willing to commit to that?
Yeah.
Cool. You ready to live without anxiety?
Absolutely. Bring
How
it
how long would you say it's been since you have had no anxiety?
Well, I've had lots and lots and lots of problems, and I've systematically sorted them all out, and I was okay. I was right. This is all sorted, car insurance. And now I found out my daughter's a single parent. So up the anxiety has come again.
Right. So once again, what I'm going to offer is your anxiety is internally generated.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
You can put it into anything that happens in your world and say, oh, I'm anxious about that. And remember from our other sessions, our definition of denial. When I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's happening inside of me, I'm in denial. When I go into denial, my mind has to create a construct, a picture world that follows my instructions. I'm anxious about that, or that, or that, or that. And in order to keep pretending that my anxiety is about something else, I have to put away and hide the root of my anxiety. In other words, I create for myself an unconscious condition. My offering is that when you do that, then living in denial, wanting to believe that it's about something out there, that internally generated anxiety never gets approached directly and healed, but is used to help to build your perceptual constructs about anything and everything in your life. And we tend to go off on rabbit trails about anything and everything. And that's just a way of avoiding going in here. And I'm going to keep inviting you to go inside yourself and keep looking at deeper and deeper levels. So the next step, my denial causes my CBM. Now, you'll see down at the bottom, and we're not going to specifically get into all the definitions, but down at the bottom, you'll see there are several definitions on the worksheet. CBM speaks about carbon-based memory. If we were to get a modern-day physicist or physiologist to take any one of our, what we call bodies, and do an analysis of its atomic makeup, we would find that the primary energy, the primary atomic construct that makes up what we call our body is the carbon atom. If you look at the carbon atom, you will see that there are 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. So we call that carbon-based memory. You might remember another time in the ancient teachings where they talked about the number of that which keeps us in trauma is 666. It's our own carbon-based memory. It's what we store inside of us that we refuse to look at, that we refuse to deal with. And so when I live in denial, I keep myself in that cycle where I never approach directly what's in me. I keep asking my mind for an hallucination. Oh, my anxiety is about what happened last week. My anxiety is about what happened with this person, what happened with that person, what happened in the world. What I can have 1,000 different places that I project my anxiety. But here, what I'm looking to do is to recognize that it's a product of something that's moving in me. And I want to approach that which is moving in me so that I can throw it out. And in essence, that's what forgiveness is. The culture's taught us that forgiveness is about how I'm going to let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. And my offering is that's nothing to do with forgiveness. That's a Greek idea of pardoning. Forgiveness is the act of collapsing false perception, the picture world that tells me that it's all about something else. And when I do that, coming inside myself and looking at the real cause of what's going on. So my denial causes my CBM, carbon-based memory, to displace my experience of myself as my essence, love, and tells me the lie that my emotions are caused by my trigger. Now you'll notice that the words my trigger are bold, italicized, and underlined. Something very important about that. Most people, when they're triggered into some sort of emotional turmoil, don't call what happened in their lives a trigger, they call it cause. So let's say, I might, if I were you, I might point to my daughter and say, you really caused me to be anxious. And that would be my effort, once again, to hide my anxiety from myself.
You see, I was a single parent and I know how hard it is. It was.
Yeah, I hear you.
Mm. And I was using drugs and addictions because, I seemed to come back from a background of trauma.
Mm. Well, as you go through this process, you're probably going to come back right directly face to face with some of that trauma. And if you look at the faces on the screen around you, there are people from all over the world, and we're each here right now with you to support you dropping inside yourself to be safe enough and be deeply enough supported to confront that trauma and to remove it. And removal is what forgiveness is.
This is my healing time, it seems. I'm doing a lot of healing right now. So
Nice.
Time to face it.
I hear you. Well, we're here to support you and delighted that we get this opportunity. So when I replace my experience of myself as my essence love, then my mind tells me that my emotions caused by whatever this trigger is. So my story, my reality is that 1C, and this would be your daughter. So you'd fill in the next blank. Name the object of your attention would be your daughter's name.
What was that last thing? Have I got to draw my emotion?
Oh yeah, that was just.
Pardon me, I did skip over that. You can sometimes, when we try to put an emotional experience into words, it can be difficult. So that little space is there just to draw your emotions. Sometimes it's pre-verbal. It might go back to something before we even had words. So it's a place for you to draw your emotions. Yes.
Okay. All right. I've drawn a stick man with a great big ball of pain, really.
Ah, okay.
Tummy.
Okay. Well, we're here to help you empty the bowl out. Now, if you go back 2,000 years ago when this process of forgiveness was introduced, there was a particular man that asked the teacher of it, how many times do we need to forgive? Is 7 times enough? And the response that came back, the Greeks tell us the response was, No, 7 times 70 times. In Aramaic, what it said was 77 times 70 times. In other words, if you've got a big bowl of trauma, as you're referring to, you may at first have the strength and the ability to dip out 1 or 2 tablespoons of that trauma to get rid of it. And you may go back and revisit that trauma. And from what you said, you probably will do a series of worksheets around this anxiety. Each time, it's kind of like you'll spoon another spoon or 2, and maybe you'll get to the point where you can use a ladle and throw a quantity of it out until you're finished with it. And then anything could happen in your world. And because there's no anxiety within you, you won't be capable of feeling anxiety in that situation. But you may do many worksheets around any given issue to spoon the content out of the bowl, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What was that other worksheet, Yinka, on the next page after the drawing?
Well, let's stay here. Let's keep our attention on this worksheet step by step and go through it. Let's let the distractions of other conversations go. And let's see how close we can get to the root of this one for you and with you. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So you've got your daughter's name and you've described the situation.
Did I put her name in?
Number 1C.
My story. Oh, I've got to name her now, have I? This point.
Number 1C, name your object of attention.
Okay, so 1C. My story, my reality is that Lauren, my daughter, is now a single parent with 2 children under the age of 3.
Okay.
And I am powerless to help and be of any support to her.
Okay. Good. That's a big issue. I hear you loud and clear. Now notice as you say that and write that, just observe yourself. What's happening with your breath?
It's shallow.
It's shallow. Okay. So what I'm going to invite you to do, and you'll see at the end of that sentence, is the word breathe. It's an invitation to open your breath and keep your breath moving. One of the ways that we avoid going inside is by keeping the breath shallow and not going deeply into ourselves. So at this point, and anyone else who's doing a worksheet, if you're doing your own worksheet, as we're going through this one with Gina, at this point, consciously, purposely take the time to breathe. And it might be a slow breath in through your nose, and then a little longer breath out through your mouth. So as you contemplate that, just look at step 1 and what you've written, what you've drawn. Take a slow breath in, maybe to the count of 5. And then let the breath out just a little slower, say to a count of 8. As you think about that. And then you'll see that at the end of that sentence, behind the word breathe, there's a hand that points over to the right and says, if they're the one with the problem, why am I the one with the pain? So in this situation, the utility of that statement would be to look at, or to acknowledge to yourself, I'm thinking I'm upset because of what's happening with my daughter, but the truth is I'm upset about what's moving in me. And step into willingness. I'm willing to touch into what this is that's moving in me in order to resolve it, rather than believe that it's caused by something out there. You know, most everybody lives in this world of, it's all your fault. Look what you did to me. I'm only upset because you didn't give me your phone number and I can't reach you. And my offering is, once again, that's denial, that's blame. And notice that we can always find somebody else to blame, but when I stop and think about it, if I've been through this particular painful emotion 87 different times with 42 different people, I'm the one that was there every time. It's about me, it's not about them. So we want to move closer and closer and closer to realizing that this is something in me that I'm capable of resolving. And then we'll go on to number 1D. So we've done A and B.
So the little arrow says, if they are the one with the problem, why am I in pain?
Right.
Why am I in pain? And then what did you say after that bit?
Well, the point is this. My mind tells me I'm upset because of what's happening with my daughter and her children. The truth is, my mind's telling me a lie. I'm not upset by what's happening with my daughter and her children. I'm upset because I have upset inside of me. If I didn't have upset inside of me, I could be looking at the situation with my daughter and I'd have a much clearer mind to approach that situation, maybe even get the guidance as to how to locate her or connect with her. But while I'm thinking that my upset is out there, I'm hiding the upset that I really need to deal with inside myself. So that's where that question is. If they're the one with the problem, people, you made me mad, you made me sad, you upset me. That situation, that really upset me. And if I ask myself the question, so if they're the one with the problem, they upset me, why am I the one with the pain? Something about that doesn't make sense. If I'm the one with the pain, maybe I have a problem and I don't know it, and I'm hiding it from myself by staying focused out there. So the objective here is just to go, oh, I'm in pain. I've known this pain long before this situation happened. So I'm going to start acknowledging that this is mine and that I can throw it out. I can get rid of it. Does that get to your question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I want to, get a coherent worksheet with the steps. So all of this that we just said is in connection with 1C, is it?
Correct. The story that I'm telling myself.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now, 1D. Before we go into the step 1D, and I'm going to ask everybody just put your pens down for a minute if you're writing. And I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and run through an exercise with me in your mind. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to, first of all, allow yourself to feel sadness. So if everybody would, for a moment, just allow yourself to feel sadness. And notice where in your physiology you're feeling the sadness. Take a breath. And imagine with your breath that you draw love into that place in your physiology where you're feeling the sadness. And you let the sadness go. And then for a moment, allow yourself to feel fear. Notice where in your physiology you felt the fear. And as you breathe, with your breath, imagine bringing love to that place where you're feeling that fear, and let the fear soften and just let it go. And then for a moment, allow yourself to feel anger. And once again, notice where in your physiology you're feeling that anger. Take a breath and let the anger go. Imagine being able to replace that anger with love. And now imagine, and we'll imagine along with you, Gina, that you're holding that newest grandbaby. And you're just tapping into the essence of that child. And if you tap into the essence of that newborn, what word would you use to describe that child?
Well, I always think of holding my son when he was a baby.
Right.
So I tap into the essence of love after 1C, do I?
Yeah. That's the idea.
I don't know. I could feel the anger and no, not the anger I felt in my lower belly, the fear and what was the other emotion? You want sadness?
Sadness.
I felt in my very strongly in my solar plexus.
Okay. Okay. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, and everyone else that just did the exercise, is notice what you had to do to feel the emotion or to experience the emotion that we invited you to experience. What did you have to do?
Well, I had to, well, for the anger, I had to think about a situation. I had to think about the situations. For the sadness, I thought about my son dying. For the fear, I think I thought about my daughter. And for the anger, I thought about the park manager.
Okay.
But I'm not sure I did all of that.
And then notice what you did to go to love. You thought about your grandchild, right?
I thought about my son when he was born.
Okay, or your son, pardon me.
But I'm not sure that I've cleared those emotions that you made me feel. I didn't like you making me feel those emotions because I try and avoid feeling those emotions.
I got it. So we're going to be inviting you to go deeper and deeper into them rather than avoid them. Because the way to empower them and keep them going is to avoid them. And so what we're going to ask you to do now, and asking everyone who's listening, who's just done this exercise, notice what was the difference between sadness, fear, anger, and the newborn. And the only difference was what you were thinking. What does that mean? Anger, sadness, fear are caused by?
Oh, our thoughts.
Yeah. So every time in your life you've ever had any kind of emotion, your body was warning you that you had unconscious thoughts moving in you that produced results you didn't like. And what virtually everybody in our world does is says, and I'm going to stay away from that stuff, which means I never get to change my mind. And if I never get to go into my own unconscious and change my mind, I get to live the title of this workshop. Why is this happening to me again? By the way, you can go to our website, whyagain.org, click on the book, and you can download the book free from the website. I think Ink is also in just about everything, has put a link to it, but download the book and give it a read. So here we are, number 1D. The truth is only my thoughts cause my emotional upset. And notice when you start to take responsibility like that, for most people, there's a tendency to hold the breath. So there's a reminder there once again to breathe. And you want to do a separate wake-up sheet for each thought that you touch into. So if around a particular situation, you've got one thought that takes you to anger, sadness, grief, rage, hatred, vengeance, that's going to be 5 different worksheets, one on each of those thoughts. Because what you're looking to do is to access the thought that causes your emotional disturbance and de-energize the emotional disturbance around that thought. And you do that by taking responsibility, not by avoiding. When you realize, if you hold that newborn, that newborn is love, if you were holding yourself, you'd realize that you are love. Remember, we started out the worksheet with your name, I, Gina, who am love. If I start tapping into the fact that I, Gina, am love, I'm going to start thinking thoughts based in love. I'm not going to be thinking thoughts based in generational patterns of hate and rage and fear and sadness and grief and pain, and have to find ways to anesthetize myself with drugs or alcohol or junk food or hostility. Anger, people think of anger as an emotion. Anger is not an emotion. Anger is a drug. It literally is an internally generated anesthetic to keep me from feeling my pain. And what we want to do is wade through all the anesthetics and drop deeper and deeper in until I'm right there face to face with what it is that causes my turmoil. And when I bring that hidden part of my mind forward in the presence of love, that pain's going to disappear from my life. Now, again, it will tend to happen in stages. The first time you confront something, you likely won't be finished with it. You might be, but you likely won't be finished with it. You might go back and do that one over and over. If you look back and you can remember, let's take an example of rage, and you can remember dad raging, you can remember mom raging, you remember grandpa raging, you heard the stories about great-great-grandpa and how he used to rage. That's a genetically inherited adaptation that tends to take you over automatically. Each time you delve into it, you weaken it a little more, you weaken it until its impact is gone, no matter how many generations it's been around. Does that fit and make sense for you, Gina?
Yes, that does make sense, yes.
Great. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to look back at 1B, and that was anxiety. And I'm going to ask myself the question, what's the thought I use to cause the emotion of anxiety in me? So thinking about this whole circumstance, what's the specific thought?
I remember what it was like when I was a single parent and how anxious I was. And I'm really worried about my grandson's development and trauma.
Worry's a different worksheet. I'm going to stay with this anxiety one. Worry's a different one. That'll be a good worksheet for you to do as well. But at this point, you want to stay with anxiety. You want to keep drilling down until you come right straight face to face with the root of that anxiety trauma. And as you breathe in the presence of it, and you bring forward love in the presence of it, you're going to find that it's going to dissolve and disappear from your life.
So I used to cause my emotion.
The thought I use to cause my emotion. And it sounds like from what you had said earlier, maybe the fact that you don't have contact with your daughter is that you can't be of assistance. Maybe powerlessness, maybe?
Yes.
That I'm powerless to do anything?
And the thing is, if I was involved, then I would probably worry even more because...
You'd have a different reason.
Yeah.
And what we want to do is get rid of all the reasons.
So 1B. So what did I write for 1B?
You wrote down anxiety.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. 1B, lots of anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thought you use to produce that anxiety is, I'm powerless here.
Oh, I see. So the thoughts I used. Did I not write that down?
I don't know. You'd know that better than I.
Okay, right. Yeah, okay. So yes, I'm powerless to help and be of assistance and be a grandma.
Okay. Now let me ask a question. How many times in your life, if you look at different circumstances, perhaps all the way back to your childhood when you maybe watched a parent who was in trauma, how many times in your life have you felt powerless?
Well, I was sexually abused, for one thing. One of many.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's pretty powerless, yeah.
Yeah.
So now as you do your worksheet, now you're starting to touch into the root of this anxiety. Is the powerlessness, the thought you hold that you're powerless, and that type of thinking started in you being sexually abused.
Yeah.
So now you're drilling down into your unconscious, the place that's the root of that. And here's the thing, it's always safe to go there and to embrace that. And what you want to do, remember we said now tap into love. What you want to do is go to that place and holding love present for yourself. And notice you've got a whole community of folks here from all over the world that are supporting you. Holding a space of love, allow yourself to go to the very core of that and breathe into that. And you begin to unravel and unwind that experiential energy of trauma. And that's forgiveness. The unwinding of that is forgiveness.
Wow. Okay, so what do I do at this point?
You filled in the blank here, the thought of being powerless, and now we're going to go to number 1E.
Do I bring in that love again as well? And
as
breathe?
Often as you can. As often as you think of it, breathe and keep bringing love forward. Breathe and keep bringing love forward. What you ultimately want to do, where healing happens, I go back, I've been developing this work for a little better than 50 years. And I can remember about 30 or so years ago, I'm working with a room full of people, and someone goes through a really powerful healing process, and they come out the other side just like shining like a bright new shiny silver dollar. Or maybe it's a silver pound, I don't know. And everybody else in the room is still doing their stuff. And I'm asking myself the question, what happened? How did this person break through that? And 20 other people in the room didn't make a breakthrough. What's the core of healing? What is this about? And what I was shown is that in order to heal a hidden trauma, two things need to occur. One, what was called the veil of the temple, the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. That's what the sheet is about, is opening that veil, has to open, and I have to go directly to the root of the trauma and bring it forward. And two, I want to bring it forward in the presence of active love. When those two things meet, when a trauma, breath, and active love meet, the trauma dissolves. The only part of the trauma that will remain is the part that somehow I still value and want to hold on to. Like, let's say, for instance, maybe a part of a trauma was rage. And here I am, I could heal this rage, but I have this thought in the back of my mind, well, if I ever get in trouble again, I may need that rage, so I'm going to hold on to it. Well, if you value it, then it's not going to go. But if whatever you're willing to access in a space of willingness, in the presence of breath and active love, that's going to be dissolved and healed. And it's that healing that is forgiveness. The whole idea of this worksheet is to get to the point where I open the veil of my temple, I reach in and I access as deeply as I'm willing to go, whatever the root of that trauma is, and I bring breath and love forward and create dissolution of that. And then I'm freed of it.
I didn't realize that that was where that was rooted, and we've gone straight to a root, and I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
And I want to heal
the idea
it.
of this worksheet. That's what it does.
I wouldn't have had the courage to go there. I wouldn't have thought of it on my own.
Yeah. And as you develop the brain cells, we're here for instruction's sake. Somebody might listen to this particular video 20 times before they get it. You have to build the brain cells. You're obviously ready. You've been doing your work. And so you're ready to hear. It's like, now I've got it. So here's what all of the rest of the healing for the rest of your life looks like. If there's something in you that generates a construct based in hostility or fear in any form, you want to go inside, access that, Bring love, presence, and breathe. And where those three things meet, healing occurs. And heal everything in you. That's what we're here to understand. That's the core of the healing process.
That was a light bulb moment when you said that. I was powerless as a child when I was being sexually abused, raged at, physically abused, physically traumatized, powerless.
Yeah, it's been going on for too long on the planet. And my experience in the last 50 years of doing this work, I don't know about England, but here in America, my estimate is that 60+% of both men and women have been sexually abused at some time in their lives. Crazy, insane, bizarre, but that's what is. And it's time for us to change that dynamic. And the only way we change that dynamic, because the sexually abused that doesn't know how to resolve and deal with that oftentimes ends up becoming a sexual abuser. You know, people say, oh, that sexual abuser, let's go beat them up and traumatize them even more. Excuse me, the sexual abuser's already been traumatized plenty. They don't need more trauma. What are you saying? Just let them roam the streets? No, I didn't say let them roam the streets. Actually, what you might want to do is take up a collection in the community, build a building with a set of bars on it, and take the people that aren't safe in the community and lock them up. But not lock them up to punish them, lock them up for healing. Yes, isolate those who are dangerous to others from the community and create a space of warmth and healing rather than, you know, here we are, we live on the punishment planet. Everybody thinks, boy, if we just punish them enough, then things will get better. Nothing has ever been made better by punishment. Somebody says, well, yeah, well, I wanted my child to do this the other day, and boy, I just threatened them with big punishment, and they did it. So certainly it works. No, just wait wait till that child grows, and wait till they turn that punishment on you, and then tell me how well it worked. It didn't work. It won't work. It never will work. It never has worked. It's time for us to get rid of it. And this is how it's done. So thanks for being brave enough and willing enough to go there. And we've only just begun. Let's go to the next step. As you keep breathing.
We've only just begun.
Yeah.
No. I'm really grateful. I feel like we're finished. I've gotten to the core and I don't know what to do with that knowledge now, you know?
Okay,
I know
well, I'm with you. We're not finished yet. We've only just began.
Bloody hell.
Okay? So we're going to go on with the worksheet, and there may be other layers and levels of things related to this core thing that you've touched into. So a good thing to do whenever you're doing a worksheet is have an additional piece of paper and you make a note on, you know, the core of this issue was when this happened. And that may point you in the direction of doing still another worksheet that takes you into another part, because there's a thing we call the hydra effect. If you remember in Greek mythology, there was this creature called the hydra. And it was a creature that when you cut her head off, a dozen other heads appeared, grew out of the stump. And oftentimes when we touch into an issue like this and cut off its head, beneath it are more and more things. So you've just started a hydra around this thing that you thought was about your daughter. And underneath it, when you kind of moved that out of the way, took some responsibility, brought love present, all of a sudden you see, oh, well, this is what's underneath that. That's your hydra. There may be other pieces of it yet. So let's go on to the next step in the worksheet, number 1E. And that is, I want to punish 1C. And in this case, it would be your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the fact that she's blocked you and won't contact you, is there some part of you that'd like to reach out and punish? Being really, truly honest with yourself?
So I want to punish my daughter, 1C. My story, my reality is that Lauren, my daughter, is now a single parent with 2 children under 3.
Wait a minute. Let's stay where, notice your mind wants to go off on another rabbit trail. Let's stay right here.
No, that's what I wrote for
What's the
1C.
punishment thought? Yes. So what's the punishment thought toward your daughter? You know, she's cut you off on the telephone. Is it, you know, I'd like to yell and scream at her? What is there? Is there a punishment thought there?
Well, I think I want to punish myself.
Okay, well, that's the second part.
Oh,
Oftentimes,
I
there's
want
punishment.
to punish Lauren by I don't know. I don't want to punish her.
Okay,
I just want to
You
love
love
her by
Okay.
loving her. I just want to love her. Is that a form of
Right.
punishment?
no,
Shall I write
no,
that?
no, I wouldn't put love in there as a form of punishment. So
I don't
we'll
know.
just assume that there would be no inclination to punish.
No, I
Now-
don't want to punish her at all. I completely forgive her.
Okay. Well, let me just offer from experience some information. What you've shared with us, you know, there's a workshop we do called Codependence to Interdependence, and in that we introduce what we call a power person. And the behaviors that the power person did to us that we didn't like will tend to play out with others when we're under stress. So while we're in this space in a conversation,
Okay, all right. Well, now you mention that, my power person, my mother, would constantly disown me all my
Okay.
life. I'm disowning you. I'm disowning you if you do this or that. So maybe I want to punish her by disowning her, pretending she doesn't exist.
that's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Pretending I
Are you
don't have a
breathing?
daughter because, you know, my son has died and it feels like I don't have a daughter.
Yeah. Are you breathing? Are you breathing? Breathe into that. What are you feeling?
A lot of pain in my solar plexus.
Yeah.
A lot of pain.
So we're going to stay on track with this worksheet. We're not going to switch to a different worksheet, but I would suggest that over there where I suggested earlier, you make notes on other worksheet, that you do a worksheet on mom disowning you and do a worksheet on you possibly disowning your daughter. So just make notes. That's your hydra. That's the things you're touching into that are potentials to do a deeper level of work around this. But we're going to stay with this one.
Because my daughter disowned me when my son was in hospital. She was given full responsibility for his care. I've forgiven her. I've forgiven her it all. And, you know, I was angry and grieving and all sorts of emotions going on, anxiety. And, you know, and I did some things because I felt goaded into doing them. And that's it. I don't want anything more to do with you. And that was when my number was blocked and she moved house and I don't know where she lives.
Mm.
And any communication to her, although I have spoken to her a few times and conversations go something like, if she does answer the phone, hi, how are you, Lauren? I'm driving. How are you? I'm fine, I'm driving.
Mhm.
How are the children? They're fine, I'm driving. You know, that's
Yeah.
the conversations.
Okay. So notice there's lots of hostility in the family.
Lots of hostility.
So that's going to be another topic for mom to work through is hostility. And notice that as you talk about how your daughter and the energy of hostility and the words I'm driving, notice that you kind of glossed over for yourself when you shared with us about with your son and what was going on with him, and you did this and that. I don't know what this and that was, whatever the words were exactly, but I can just about guarantee there was some hostility in there. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I accused her of being toxic.
Yeah. Okay. So then notice that your punishment is just like mom's was toward you. You're toxic, which would lead to something like, I'm going to disown you. Would that be accurate? These patterns tend to be generational. They've been going on for a long time. Most often they didn't start with us. So each of those things, and I'm going to suggest that when you get this video, you sit down with an organized notebook and go through, and every word that keys into another issue that ties back into this, every piece that's a hydra, you start making notes of those and clean all that up. By the time you're finished, what you're uncovering here, you're hardly going to know you're living in the same body or in the same world. Whether you hear from your daughter or not, you're hardly going to know that you're living in the same body or the same world if you'll do the work that I'm inviting you to do. Are you breathing? Are you breathing?
Yes, this is hard.
Good. Yeah, it's a challenge because the breath is how we hold those things down and lock them away. It literally, in the ancient teachings, they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain. That was not a religious idea. That wasn't about a purple curtain in a church. This is the temple. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. It's built by holding the breath. And when you start opening the breath, you start accessing all the things beneath the veil. And it's a significant amount of work to do that. That's why we suggest you just stay focused on one issue at a time, one worksheet, and work through it. So we've got your punishment thought for Lauren, and now what's the punishment toward yourself?
I always write to keep holding on to these emotions and punishing myself with them.
Okay. I'll make note of that then.
So I punish myself by
Go ahead. You just shared it.
Experiencing anxiety and holding on to the emotions.
So notice the insight that anxiety is self-punishment.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That'll change your life if you really let yourself be aware of that one.
So anxiety is a form of self-punishment. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. Good catch. Okay, so you've written that down, and now you'll see there's another little box there. And this box is an introduction to the idea of verbal release. Most of our traumas, traumatic energies, came into our energy fields through the use of words. Verbal release is a powerful way to direct those energetic patterns out of our structures. So what I want to do is I want to release and surrender each step in this worksheet to love. So I'm bringing love present, I'm breathing, and then I release and surrender myself. That's number 1A. So Lauren, my emotion, I release and surrender my emotion of anxiety to love.
Hang on. Oh, I see. Oh, that little box. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. I release. Hang on. Surrender myself. So I release and I surrender myself
to love.
And surrender myself to love.
And then I release and surrender my emotion, my anxiety to love. I release and surrender number 1C, Lauren, my daughter, to love.
Hang on. I release and surrender myself to love. Yeah.
And then your emotion.
I release and surrender my emotion of anxiety.
Right. And then number 1C, your daughter's name, I release and surrender Lauren to love. So I'm verbally directing energy, releasing, letting loose of that energy and replacing it with breath and active present love. I release and surrender my story. So the whole story about your daughter and not being able to reach her, being cut off, to love.
I release and surrender Lauren to love.
Yeah. I release and surrender my thoughts to love.
I release and surrender my thoughts to love.
And I release and surrender my punishment
I
toward
release
myself
and surrender my punishment
toward myself and toward Lauren.
myself and
I release and
towards
surrender the punishment of imposing anxiety on myself, and I release and surrender the desire to separate from or remove Lauren from my life.
so
Now,
yeah, I release and surrender my punishment towards myself and towards Lauren to love. And that is the
to yourself, it was anxiety,
yeah,
and to
myself.
Lauren, it was to separate from her. Pretend she doesn't exist, kind of like mom did.
Yeah, and
That's
to Lauren
that's
to
a
pretend.
repeating. Yeah, that's the repeating of a power person dynamic. That goes into the next level into our codependence work.
Man, powerful, powerful.
Okay. So I'm taking everything that I identified in number 1, and I'm starting to verbally let loose of that. And then, you know, I'm not finished with that in my mind yet. It's kind of like a balloon. It's been blown up a few times, so it'll blow up again quite easily if I let it. So there's another step, and you'll see in that little box, there's a hand that points over to another short paragraph on the right in the right-hand column. And
Right.
it says this, and here's, I want you to follow along with me. I cancel my need to be right and to make up another story out of these brain cells, to hallucinate proof that my fear and hostility-based story, my reality, is true. So what I'm saying, what I've observed over the years, the reason I put that step in the worksheet is I observed over the years that people would work through an issue, let's say with the daughter, but they turn around and do it with their son or with their spouse or with their neighbor. It'd be the same story. They just keep living out their story. In fact, at our teaching center, we used to have a music director, and he wrote a song called "Stuck in My Story, My Pain and My Glory." And what we want to do is put an end to this pain and ego glory by letting go of it. So here I'm going to cancel my need to make up another story to prove that I'm right about this. I'd rather be loved than be right. Does that make sense?
So I cancel my need to be right and make up another story out of these brain cells to hallucinate. So what does that mean, to hallucinate proof?
When brain cells, if I have a story that I have to prove that I'm always right, I can do the verbal releases I did here, but if it's the first time I've confronted that, I'm probably not really finished with it. So it'll be easy to blow that balloon up again. So what I'm going to do is allow myself to be aware. My mind's sneaky and tricky. It might go and try to do this same game all over again. So I'm going to cancel the goal to do that, to prove that I'm right about this and hallucinate another reality that plays out the same story.
So I cancel my need to be right.
Yes.
And make up another story out of these brain cells.
Correct.
To hallucinate proof that my fear and hostility-based story, my reality, is true.
Right. And breathe. And now we're going to go back to number 2. As you breathe into that.
So what is it I'm canceling there, Michael?
Well, what did you just read? Instead of asking me, I'm going to turn it back to you. What's it say?
I'm not sure what I'm canceling because
read the words. Read the words. What's it say?
I cancel my need to be right and
There you
make
go. Stop there. Just stop there. How many times in your life, what have you given up in your life to prove that you were right?
I don't know what you mean. My peace of mind?
Sounds accurate. That's what most people do. Yes. So you just read what you're canceling. You're canceling. You need to be right. I'm going to be finished with that pattern. Period. And then a second thing is, and I'm going to stop making up stories out of this story. I'm going to be finished with this. Okay.
All right. I think so.
So you're canceling exactly what you read. My need to be right and my need to make up another story out of these brain cells.
Based on the worksheet I'm doing right now.
Correct. Yeah, based in number one. This is all based in what you uncovered, and you've only just started the process yet. We haven't got to the core of forgiveness yet. So you've done a lot of pretty deep work and gotten in touch with some pretty powerful things, but that's just starting. And as you catch yourself at it, and you may do that step of cancel, you need to be right 100 more times before your mind finally goes, this being right isn't everything it's all cracked up to be. It keeps me in trouble all the time. Maybe I should just be finished with it. It takes most people a long time to get that that's a good thing to do, because they grew up in a world where if they weren't right, they got punished, they got beat up, they got abused. From the time they were 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 12 or 20 or 50. And so the attachment to being right is really deep for a lot of people. So I'm going to let go of it. I'm going to be finished with it. I would rather bring love present than prove that I'm right about this, because present love's a whole lot more valuable than being right.
Are we gonna look more into what caused this powerless feeling?
Well, we've gone a third of the way through the worksheet yet. So we've got lots of work to do. Let's move forward. So let's go to number 2.
We're only on number 2.
We're only on number 2. Yeah, it feels like we've been at this a month, right?
Yeah. When I started this work, I was working with the one that Yinka sent me, and it seemed to be much simpler. I don't know if that was the 12-step one.
Yeah, probably it was. And here's what I suggest, that you work with the one that you find most effective. We wanted to demonstrate this one. And if you find the other one more effective for you, use that one.
Yeah, because
there are at least a dozen different ones on the website. Experiment with every one of them. And there are steps in it that will be, oh man, that one really works for me. And that may become your favorite worksheet. That's why I don't just have one worksheet on the site. I have many that probably over the last 40 years of developing this worksheet, I've got at least 100 different ones. And I don't know exactly what the count is on the website. It's maybe a dozen or so different worksheets.
But they're all the same. It's all the same basic.
The key steps are the same. The details are different.
Right.
And so,
Okay.
do I, all the cars get me down the road. Do I want to drive a Cadillac or a Ford? Which one works for me? So I suggest you experiment with the different worksheets until you get the one that just really clicks for you. And several people who've done my work and worked with me for many years, they change worksheets regularly. They'll do, maybe this one for a week, and then they'll do the 12-step. And then there's actually a 3-step, and they'll do the 3-step. And then there's a different 7-step. And so experiment with them until you find the one that fits best for you. Every one of them has the basic steps in it. There are just some frills, like with a car, there are some options that aren't on the other. Find the ones that work for you best.
Thank you for explaining that. Now, I wouldn't have got to that deep core of powerlessness on my own, I don't think.
Well, that's why we're working here together, and you've got a whole group supporting you. That helps to reach deeper. And I'm going to invite you to let go of the need to put yourself down and tell us how you couldn't do it. You're going to develop the skill. You can do anything and everything that I can do. And all you need to do is let go of the thought disorders that you've acquired that say, well, I can't do it. Because you can. You're going to work at it. It's going to take work. There's maybe going to be struggle. There's going to be pain to be uncovered. And just move forward. It's like, You know, I bet if we had Tiger Woods' phone number right now, if we called him, he's somewhere on a golf course, either driving golf balls or putting or chipping. And that's why he's a champion. If you take this and every day you go on the course and you use it, you'll become a champion in using it. You know, from what you've heard on this broadcast or this study group, the last couple of sessions, you know more about forgiveness, and you may not be ready to acknowledge yourself this deeply. You know more about forgiveness than 99.999% of people who have ever lived on planet Earth. You know more about forgiveness than 99.5% of the psychiatrists and psychologists and doctors in the world. You know more about it. Now, if your power person gave you messages of how you're not good enough, or you'll never be good enough, or you'll never be able to, you're going to have to forgive those thought disorders. They're going to be more worksheets. But the truth is, anything I can do, you can do. In fact, there's an old song about that. Anything I can do, you can do better, right? We're all capable of this. It's just a process of working through these thought disorders that oftentimes are culturally implanted from the family system, and come with our genes. And it's the work of cleaning that up. So let's go on to number 2. If everybody would, number 2A. Now, when I look at number 1, and I told myself the lie that this situation was the cause of my pain, I liked my lie. Most people like their lies. They like to believe that it's all somebody else's fault. But we're going to invite you in number 2 to make a different choice. I choose to love truth. And actually, we should change that word love to honor. I choose to honor truth and willingly face and process out all disease-producing energies for and from all of my relations. You know, in the Native American culture here in the United States, when the Native Americans went into a sweat lodge or a healing ceremony, they had a mantra that they would use. They had a phrase that they would use. And the phrase was Matakwiasin. And Matakwiasin means for all of my relations. The Native Americans knew when they were going into a healing process, as you are now, you're not just doing this for yourself, you're doing it literally for all your generations. What you're changing energetically in you right now is probably shifting in your daughter and your granddaughter, or pardon me, your 2 grandchildren, energetically. So, Matakwiasin. In the ancient teachings, they talked about going into the desert. There was this group of people called the Jews, and they escaped from captivity, that means unconsciousness, and they got lost in the desert. Now, if you take a look at that desert, it's about a 35 square mile area. Is it possible that a bright group of people who've written wonderfully about astronomy could possibly be lost in a 35 square mile hot sandy place for 40 years? It wasn't about a hot sandy desert. That word desert is a code word for the unconscious. This work is about you entering into your unconscious, into your desert. If you take a look around, most people under the age of 40 are pointing fingers at everybody else. And by the age of 40, many people are starting to scratch their heads and go, you know, I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people. Maybe this has got something to do with me. And now I've got to enter into my own unconscious, my own desert. That's what this is about. And you'll notice that in that parable about being lost in the desert, what did the Jews have to do to get out of the desert into what they called the promised land? They said the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. The causes held within us that we have built walls against and refuse to look at and deal with. We need to open the veil, breathe, and look in there and process through those things. Processing through those things is called forgiveness. It happens when I allow myself to access something from my desert, from my unconscious, and I hold love present and breathe in the presence of it. That's how I work through what's in my desert. So this
You're
person,
saying that the desert in the Bible wasn't real. It was
Well,
And-
I'm not going to get into a discussion about is it real or isn't. I'm just saying this is the core meaning of it. This is where the rubber hits the road.
yeah, that's interesting. I've never heard of that before, Michael.
Okay, good.
You know, so you're saying that the desert is
The unconscious.
the unconscious
It's the
mind.
part where there's stuff stored in me that runs me and I didn't have a clue it was there. Like, gee, I had no idea when I thought I was experiencing anxiety around what was happening with my daughter, that I was really touching back into an anxiety that started when I was sexually abused as a child. I had no idea that was happening. You just went into the desert and you're resolving energetically that energetic pattern. And again, you allow yourself to access it. You open this veil, you allow yourself to access it, and you do it in the presence of active love and breath. And those things dissolve and you're freed of them. Cleaning out the desert, cleaning up the unconscious.
Yeah, so the anxiety is not from my daughter, it's from the powerlessness of my childhood.
Correct. You got it. So there's a good worksheet. I'd make a note of that sentence.
I have.
The powerlessness of my childhood. There's a good worksheet for you to do.
Oh, that's another worksheet.
Yes. Remember, I talked about the hydra. This is another aspect of the hydra. There's another one of those heads popping up. Oh, that's what that's about. So now I'm going to do some forgiveness work around that, which will probably uncover other pieces and other pieces and other pieces. This isn't a process you're going to engage in for a week and then go, oh, there, now I'm all finished. We're talking here now about a lifetime of work.
Which is never ending.
Well, I wouldn't say it's never ending, but it's a good lifetime of work to really clean up your own desert. I mean, when you start thinking, in 30 generations of each of our bloodlines, if you do the math, one generation back there's me, there's one, there are two, there are four, there are 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. You do that math. In just 30 generations, there are 1.6 billion people in your genes. Your genes are a component of your unconscious. You're going in and cleaning up the mess, the generational patterns. You remember again, this man Yeshua said, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. We're saying, stop functioning out of the unconscious dynamics of your generational patterns, clean them up, and enter into conscious creation. That was called the promised land. It's not a piece of property on the other side of a desert. That's not the promised land. The promised land is where you've cleaned up your unconscious, and in clarity and purity, you consciously create your life as you're designed to do. That's the real work of those ancient teachings. Men made them into religions and churchianity, and that's a whole other story. I want to get back to number 2 because I don't know what time we're supposed to be finished. Do we have a time frame, Inka?
Between 10:30 and 11.
Say again?
Between 10:30 and 11. 10:30, like 11 is the latest normally.
11 at the latest. Okay. So then
the promised land is what? The promised land is
conscious co-creation, where there's nothing in your unconscious that you're unaware of that interferes with your creative process.
So all cleared out, really.
That's it. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get back to 2A again. I'd like to see if we can get through the rest of this whole worksheet. So I choose to love truth. I'm going to honor truth in me. And we're going to change that word love. Actually, I need to renovate this worksheet. It's been a while since I've changed it, but we've realized that love does not describe something we do to somebody or something. Love describes who we are. And when we misuse the word as it is misused here, love truth, honor truth is what we're looking for. And willingly face and process out all of the disease-producing energies for and from all of my relations, all of my generations. So I'm saying I'm ready to face everything that's in me and bring it up in the presence of love, breathe through it, and let it go. Number 1B, I willingly go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. So here's a statement of willingness. When you think of your structure as an energy field, if your structure lives in, I don't want to deal with this, you can hold on to these things that are painful forever. When you choose to breathe and soften and step into willingness, oh, okay, so whatever's in there, I'm willing to breathe into it, bring love present, and process through it. Then what's going to happen is you're going to experience symptoms. You remember in our first session, I think we talked about Einstein, where he says, on such things as matter, we have been all wrong. What we have heretofore called matter is energy, energy whose vibrations have been so lowered as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. Einstein says you don't have a physical body. If you could see what's really there, you'd see you have an energy body. And when you realize that you have an energy body, when you bring an energy into the structure that doesn't belong in it, it creates symptoms. Most people, when they bring an energy in that creates symptoms, run for a pill, hold their breath, drug themselves, and shut that energy down and hide it from themselves. Now, the day that I'm ready to deal with whatever that one was, and I'm in willingness and I let that open, and that energy starts to move out, as it's moving out of my field, what's it going to look like? It's going to look like exactly what it looked like on the way in. So what I'm saying here is I'm preparing myself. I'm willing to deal with everything physically, mentally, and emotionally that's happened in any of my generations. That might mean I'm going to face some of the most tragic horrors you could ever imagine. But if I remember the first line of the worksheet, I, Michael, who am love, I can handle those things. So what does healing look like? On a physical level, symptomatically, healing looks like any kind of symptom that you've ever had and low energy. On a mental level, looks like any kind of negative thought you've ever had and confusion. On an emotional level, it looks like any kind of negative feeling you've ever had and depression. That's what healing looks like. So what am I doing? I'm opening the veil of the temple with forgiveness. I'm breathing. I'm allowing myself to access that which has been hidden. I'm bringing it forward. This is not Dr. Feelgood. I'm going to hold to the presence of active love and breathe into that as I dissolve it and free myself of it. Mitakuye-oyasin, for all of my relations. So I'm willing to go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. Whatever I find there, I'm going to keep breathing and moving through it. So that's number 2. Are you willing to go through those symptoms? And I really acknowledge you, Gina, what you've touched into so far. It's been some pretty intense stuff, and I acknowledge you for your willingness and keep moving forward, keep charging forward. That's awesome.
So I choose to honor truth and willingly face and process out all the disease-producing energies for and from all my relations.
Yeah.
And generations. And what's the blank space there after 2B? Maybe not. I willingly go through the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing. And I'm holding a space of love and breathing as I go through it all. So it's going to be hard. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, no, if you're in willingness, it can be pretty easy, but it might get intense. It becomes, people say, well, doing this work and, this is really hard to do. It's like, excuse me, what's really hard is living in repeated trauma over and over and over and over again. But to live in habituated repeating trauma is easy. It's effortless, but it's a really hard way to live. But it doesn't take any effort because it's already built into what we call the automatic decision system. It isn't hard to do your work, but it takes effort. It's effortless to live the other way, just to go with whatever's moving from within, whatever hostility, fear, rage, guilt, grief, trauma. Yeah, it's automatic. No effort required. It does take effort to change that.
I like to try and keep myself in as high a vibration as I can.
You're right on track. And there's a time to allow yourself to delve into, as we're doing here, the deeper things so we become conscious of what's driving us and are able to change it, touch the mainspring of activity within us.
And then how long are these symptoms likely to go on for?
Well, I can take something that took 10 years to develop, a big major issue. And if I'm in unwillingness, or pardon me, if I'm in willingness, I can be complete with that in 2 minutes. I could take an issue that took 2 minutes to develop, and it's a small one, but I go into resistance with it and I don't want to feel it. And I can be doing that one 10 years later.
Hang on.
So the thing it depends on is what's my willingness level.
So these symptoms that you're talking about, are they momentarily while you're working with it? Is that what you mean? Or is it something that's going to be ongoing? Does that make any sense, that question?
Yes, it makes perfect sense, and it will be whatever it is. And the thing that determines how quickly I'll move through it is the level of willingness that I have. And like, for instance, in this case, you've got a whole support team of people around the world that are focused on holding a space of love and support for you. That accelerates the process. I might suggest, and this might be an idea, Yinka, that you pair people up to be accountability partners. You know, if everybody says, okay, we're going to do 1 worksheet or 5 worksheets a day, then you report to an accountability partner. You communicate via email or text or phone that you finished your worksheet or worksheets for the day. And or if there are questions or supports needed, you've got somebody to call and say, hey, I need support with this one. So that might be something to consider.
I will do that because we do that with other group sessions that we have. So
perfect.
I will put it on for this one as well.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's go now to step 5, or pardon me, step 3. And this is the core of the process. You'll notice that you're never in upset, your mind tells you, toward anybody, as long as they're doing everything you want them to do. I mean, unless you're just a generally miserable person, you're pretty happy with most people as long as they're doing what you want them to do, right? You'll notice the only time you go into upset towards someone is when they fail to achieve a goal that you hold for them. And so this step is about, in this situation with your daughter, looking precisely at the goal you hold for her. That is the driver that when you load it in your mind, resonate or accesses your unresolved pain. So step number 3, my desire, the constructive result, the exact goal that drives this pain perception is that 1C, my trigger, what is it that you want from her?
I don't think I actually wrote what I wanted for her.
Okay.
I didn't. Was I supposed to write that in 1C as well?
That's what you want to do in 1C. Now, you did start out with something. Has that refined any? Has that shifted any? When you look at what you're going to write now?
My story in 1C, my reality is that Laura, my daughter, is now a single parent with 2 children under the age of 3. I am powerless to help them and be any support to her.
So now, what's your goal? Seeing as how she's the object of attention in this worksheet, what's your goal for her?
My goal is that she invites me to a house,
okay,
and invites me back into her life.
Perfect. So that would be your answer in number 3. And always when you identify a goal, you want to make it the constructive result. A lot of people would look at something like this and they'd say, oh, well, I just want my daughter to stop rejecting me. Well, that's what they don't want. And forgiveness doesn't work with what you don't want. You've got to be clear about what it is that you do want. So every time you fill in a worksheet, you're filling it in with what's the constructive result you want from the object of attention. Now, sometimes people will switch worksheets. Oh, we're getting too close to some things I don't want to look at. And so they'll say, well, I just want, in this step number 3, I just want to have a happy life. Well, if you were doing a worksheet on yourself being sad, the goal to have a happy life would be appropriate. But if you're doing a worksheet on the anxiety that's coming up and your daughter cutting you out of her life, the goal is going to be the goal that you've got for your daughter. And in this case, you've got it very exactly to let you back in. And so everyone who's doing a parallel worksheet, what is it you really want from whoever your object of attention is there in number 1C?
And then I would worry that once I'm back in her life, I'll worry even more.
Well, okay, so now make a note. There's your next worksheet. Notice that you've got a mind that can put worry on anything.
Yeah.
What would it be like to live in a body-mind unit that didn't know how to worry?
Oh, that'll be awesome.
Okay, so you know what you're going to have to do that, right?
Yes.
You're going to have to forgive your generational pattern of worrying.
Oh, right.
That's
I didn't expect you to say that. Okay. I thought you were going to say do worksheets.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're going to do worksheets. You're going to forgive that generational pattern where worry is what fills in for care, concern, and the presence of love.
So I have to, sorry, what did you say?
I didn't say anything. Just recognize that your goal is what you want here.
Yeah. But I've got to, what you say, fill in the gap. Oh, yeah, fill in the gap of worry that masqueraded as care. Is that right?
That would be another piece of work. That would be one of those hydra worksheets that you do. That's another piece you just touched into that would be some work to be done. Shakespeare gave us a great clue. He said, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. If when I'm doing this work or at any time in my life, I just observe my words will always tell me what I'm hiding from myself and what my work is. All I have to do is pay attention to it. Pay attention to every word you say. Every word you say is a reflection of something going on in your mind. And if it's not about love, then you want to be about forgiving it. Be finished with it. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the next step, step 4. I choose love, my essence, which stirs the love in everyone involved. And you'll see the rose and the butterfly story. That's a story I like to tell at this stage in the worksheet about a rose and a butterfly that, we give them an ego, they meet, they fall in love, they have this wonderful time together. And one day the butterfly up and flies away, knowing that the rose is the rose, knowing that the butterfly is the most important thing in its life, uproots itself and gives chase. What happens to the rose?
Sorry, they build a relationship and then...
So the rose uproots itself, pulls itself out of the soil and goes chasing after the butterfly. What's going to happen to the rose?
Oh, it will die.
It's going to die. So whenever I make my something more important than my source, which is connectedness to love. Remember when you held your son, you're real clear that his presence is love. When somebody held you the first time, it was really clear who you really were. We started the worksheet out. I, Gina, who am love. Whenever you make anything more important than that, you uproot yourself from your source. And I'll offer that's the only cause of death there is in the world.
So I choose love, my essence, which stirs the love in everyone involved.
In other words, love is an energy. When I connect to the truth of who I am, rather than hostility or fear, if I connect to hostility and fear, I can resonate the hostility and fear in everybody around me. I can get a crazy party going. But when I choose love, then by making that choice, I'm going to tend to resonate that love in every other person. It's kind of like if you think about the science experiment, we take a middle C tuning fork, we hit it hard on a desk so it's really vibrating, and we put it near a second middle C tuning fork. What happens to the second tuning fork? without being touched, it starts to vibrate. It entrains. There's a resonance. There's an exchange of energy between them. The second tuning fork has no choice about that. If you continuously connect to love in the presence of anyone, that love has got to start to move on some level in them. So the idea here is, am I going to make my connection to love, my source, more important than going chasing off after the goals in my life? If you don't, you'll tend to destroy yourself. If you do, then you'll tend to live as love. Make sense?
Yeah, kind of.
I like that little that emotion that came there. That was good.
What emotion?
Just that little sound, the emoting, that little sound that you made, that, oh, like, oh, I got that. Yeah, it's good. Okay, so now let's move on to number 5. Now this is basically a recap of the whole Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. And, you can go to our website. There's actually a 10-hour video package that you can order from our product catalog. And it has an original 4-hour version of this Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop that I did 35 or 36 years ago. It has a 4-hour, the latest 4-hour version of the workshop that I did just a few years back. It's the latest full 4-hour workshop that I've done. And that package also includes an abbreviated 2-hour workshop. So you've got, if you really want to integrate all of the principles we're talking about, as you can tell, it's a big conversation. I mean, we could literally spend, we do intensives at our center in Missouri, and we'll do a 65-day intensive. And that intensive, I'll present like I'm presenting now, anywhere from 6 to 10 hours a day for 65 days. So there's a lot of material to be covered. So there are different things. If you want to access it on a deeper level, again, you're welcome to go and download the book free from our website. Somebody did contact us from the show, and I don't know if he's with us, last week, and he had wanted me to sign a book for him and send it. And he ended up going to eBay and ordering the book from eBay. And he wrote to us and he said, I've got a signed book, just what I asked for. I created it. He said, the only thing is I got to change my name to Jim. I had signed the book to somebody named Jim, and he had bought it on eBay. But it was kind of fun that he reported to us that he got a signed book.
That was Daniel, but he's not. He's just he's not here at the moment.
Okay. So number 5, and this is kind of a review of the whole essence of the first half of the workshop. When upset, my perception, the construct of my mind, is built out of corrupt data and driven by my goal, number 3. So
Which
if you look
is
back at number 3, that's the goal. That's
my desire,
perception.
which is my
Desire
goal
for your
that
daughter to let you back in.
she invites me back into a house and back into her life.
Right. So that's the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it is a limiting picture constructed from a max of 9 bits of data out of 10,000 brain cells fired. So there's some Harvard research that we quote in the Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, where they show that in a time frame, which is about a 25th of a second, where there are 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity firing off in the brain, that the max amount of data that goes into our perceptual construct is 9 bits, just a little tiny piece of it. And so that's what this is referring to. By canceling my goal, now here's what we're going to do. We're going to get to the point where we're going to invite you to cancel that goal that you identified that you held for your daughter. And many people say, well, but Michael, that's a very reasonable goal for me to have. And I go, yeah, I'd have that same goal if I were separated from my daughter. I'd want her to let me back in. So, Michael, why would I cancel a perfectly good goal like that? Well, I don't cancel it because there's anything wrong with the goal. I don't cancel it because I don't want what the goal describes. I cancel it because I recognize every time I load it in my mind, it calls in my unconscious pain. It brings that pain into activity. And now I tend to go unconscious in it. So I'm canceling the goal to open the space to drop in and clean up that hidden part of my own mind. Go ahead. Does that make sense?
What do I do with the powerlessness in the childhood about the
You don't do
sexual
anything.
abuse?
You don't do anything. Nope, we're not going there. That's the worksheet you made a note on. You're going to do that worksheet another time.
Oh, so that's
You may
so.
do 77 times 70 worksheets around that issue.
Can I not just heal that in this session, if that makes sense?
Well, that's not the worksheet you're doing. Notice the mind wants to go, oh, here's what I want to accomplish. Well, we're doing a worksheet on an issue with your daughter right now. Now, you're going to process through probably a significant part of that early trauma. But if you shift over to that now, you're abandoning this worksheet to go and do something else. And what that usually means when somebody abandons a worksheet is there's something there I really don't want to get near and I don't want to look at. I want to avoid it. So as I've said, what I'm going to do is draw you back to this worksheet. We're going to stay centered on this process until we're complete with it.
So that I just have to work on separately. So I'm aware it's there. So
remember we talked about the hydra. You got a whole list of worksheets to do, right?
So I just have to sit with that energy, knowing it's there, until I do a worksheet on it. Is that what you're saying?
Everything you access that's in you that's less than love, this is the way to process through it. Do another worksheet. Do another worksheet. Do another worksheet, and then do perhaps another one until you're finished with it.
Okay. All right.
But when you're doing one, I mean, when you touch into a hydra, make a note. Oh yeah, there's another one I just uncovered I need to do. I know that when I do worksheets, I always have a stack of at least a dozen blanks. And as I'm doing something and something subtle sneaks up to awareness, I'll go and fill in that step on a blank worksheet. And what I've noticed over the years that oftentimes when I go through one worksheet, I've uncovered another 4 or 5 that I need to do. Say again?
Oh, I thought it was frozen then.
I didn't quite hear you. Could you say that a little louder, Yinka?
Yinka thought she was frozen.
Yeah, sorry, it said my internet lost connection, so yeah, I was just making sure.
Okay, you're back.
There we go.
You're back. So what I want to do is stay focused on this worksheet until I'm complete with it, then pick up whatever one comes next. And again, around that original event with that sexual abuse, you may literally do 77 times 70 of these before you get finished with it. And I could bet that if at that young age you were sexually abused, there's a good chance that there are generational patterns of sexual abuse to be cleaned up. And that's just part of the healing process. Matakuyasan for all my relations. So in the Aramaic language, the word forgive is shabag or shabak, and it literally translates to cancel. The driver that causes my mind to use pain content to produce my perceptual construct is the key way into that hidden part of my mind. And Bruce, if you're still with us, this is a piece that Bruce is a woman who was on the show or on the call earlier. I hope you're still there. This is a piece that, oh, good. Okay. So way back at Heartland years ago when you did teacher training, I didn't know how to explain this piece. I didn't learn this until about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, 7 years ago. So, and you know, because you've been around the work for what, 25 years or more, you know that I've always taught the canceling of goals, but I never knew how to explain what was going on. Now, here's what I understand. That goal is the driver that through resonance causes my mind to use this pain content to build my perceptual construct. And what I need to do is collapse my perceptual construct, collapse it. How am I going to do that? I cancel the goal. When I remove the goal that causes my mind to use that data, that whole construct collapses in on itself. And when it collapses in on itself, it gives me access to what's at the root of that trauma. That's the core of forgiveness from the Aramaic, and why you do such a silly thing as cancel a perfectly good goal. So it's a wonderful goal. It's a goal everybody could have, should have, would have, and it'd be perfectly fine for everybody to have that goal for everybody in their lives. But if I recognize that when I load it into my mind, it shows me some of my unconscious trauma, canceling it allows me to drop in and heal that part of my mind. Does that make sense, Gina?
Truthfully, no, but
it took me 35 years to learn that piece, Gina. So if it isn't 100%, oh yeah, I got that. Be with it. Listen to the tape of this or the video of this a few times, and it'll make sense. And does that make sense for you, Bruce? Does that add a dimension to all the years you spent with the forgiveness process, but I didn't know this piece?
Well, I'm now confused. There's another sheet.
yeah, right, thank you. It's not just-
Confusion. How cool is that?
I'll have to look at that several times, Michael, for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. It's not just me. So
Okay,
my
let me just do a synopsis here. Let me just do this once
another,
more.
Another thought there. The canceling. Canceling the goal. In essence, maybe what I'm hearing is you put your intention out. You have provided all the energy for that to happen. And by canceling it, you allow the universe, in essence, to take over and create that for you on its own without, you don't have to drive it anymore. Is that correct? Is that what you're thinking,
No,
Michael? No.
no, your brain cells are in a whole different arena right now than mine.
Sorry.
So let me do a synopsis of it again.
it says here, by cancelling my goal, my replicate mind's reality collapses and
Right.
gives me direct contact with the denied and disassociated parts of my
carbon-based memory. Yeah.
Which projects and blames others for its content.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just do another just little short explanation of it. Everybody's got a reality. Reality is the output of the mind. It's made up of 9 bits of data. In a time frame where that 9 bits of data produces a construct in a mind called perception, Harvard research says there are 10,000 brain cells firing. It's been estimated in that same time frame that the actuality in the world could be 20 trillion bits of data. So my mind takes let's assume that's accurate, a 20 trillion bit world, turns it into 10,000 bits of activity, and selects, according to my goal, 9 bits to go into producing a picture, a construct we call perception. If that perception contains data based in pain, then that perception is a lie, it's an error, and it'll keep me playing out of the same dynamics. Forgiveness in Aramaic, the word that they translate as forgive is shabag or shabak. It means to cancel. How it is applied is that I cancel the goal that drives my mind to use this pained data. I cancel it, and that whole construct collapses. When it collapses in on itself, it gives me access to the underlying trauma, the original direct trauma that needs to be healed. I get to breathe into that, pull that up in the presence of love, and heal. A good visualization. And it's not a happy visualization, but pretty much everybody in the world is familiar with it, and it really, makes it very simple to see. You'll remember on 9/11, virtually everybody in the world has seen the video of a building falling free fall speed into its own footprint. And that's exactly what happens with perception. If I have pained perception and I cancel the goal that elicits that construct in my mind, that whole construct collapses in on itself. When it collapses in on itself, it gives me access to the underlying trauma. the thing that my mind is replicating over and over and over again. And when I can bring that underlying energy, it opens a pathway between the unconscious and the conscious mind. And I can bring that unconscious energy forward in the presence of love and breath and dissolve it. So now I'm dissolving the real root of the original trauma that's beneath my repeating, why is this happening to me again experience. Now, again, I want to acknowledge it took me 35 years working full time with first century Aramaic forgiveness to be able to do that 3-minute explanation. And there were times, let me tell you, where I taught that, why is this happening to me? And I'm talking about the full 4-hour workshop. I taught that workshop sometimes 3 times in a day. And it took me 35 years to understand that's why you do such a perfectly ridiculous thing as cancel a perfectly good goal. I mean, it's a wonderful goal for me to want my daughter to communicate with me if I'm separated with her. Why do I cancel it? Because every time I load that goal in my mind, it brings forward my unresolved pain.
So what is it I say then? So
you just follow the script right here on the page.
Right.
So while holding love, so you see the bold print on number 5, down toward the bottom of number 5. While holding love conscious, active, and present, I now choose to collapse my mind's lies, i.e. that my pain is about my daughter when it's really about what happened to me when I was 3 and I was sexually abused.
Oh.
So I'm going to be holding love present. I'm consciously, purposely bringing love present, breathing. So while I hold love conscious, active, and present, I choose to collapse my mind lies by willingly canceling my goal for my daughter to include me in her life.
Yeah, I was wondering what I wrote.
Well, the goal you had in number 3, that's what you want. You want to transfer your goal from number 3, word for word, down to number 5A. And breathe.
Driven by my goal, which is 3, to be invited back into her life.
That's it.
Yeah, what did you just say? Driven and driven by my need to punch. Sorry, I missed what you just said. What did you just say?
What I said is you bring your answer from number 3, exactly what you just said, you'd written in number 3, down to number 5, you hold love present, you breathe, and you cancel that goal.
Oh, driven by my goal at number 3, which is that I want Lauren to invite me
back into her life.
I've got lost. I've got a bit lost here.
Okay. So I cancel my need for Lauren to invite me back into her life. And breathe and hold to the presence of love. Breathe. Notice you're holding your breath. So let me just share what's happening right now. What I suspect is happening is you've started to open this space and now there's just mass confusion.
Yes.
You're in process, dear heart. You're in process. That's exactly what happens. So when you gave permission, when you canceled that goal, you opened a whole can of worms that you've never wanted to look at in your life. It includes your daughter. It includes your son. It includes your grandchildren. It includes being sexually abused at 3. You opened the can of worms, and now your mind's going, wait a minute, what end is up? How do I figure this out? What do I do with this? And all you do is breathe and hold to the presence of love. Just sit and breathe and be with this. And you might go back again and read that step one more time at the end of number 5A. While holding love conscious, active, and present, I now choose to collapse my mind's lies by willingly canceling my goal for my daughter to invite me back into her life. And I'm going to breathe. Just breathe into that. Just be gentle with yourself and breathe into that. And I'm going to invite everybody that's on the call to just really be focused in Gina's direction and holding the space for her. You're in big time process. And our definition of process in this work is the ability to hold love conscious, active, and present when something less than love comes up. So we're here doing that with you and for you.
So by willingly cancelling my goal of Lauren, the grandchildren, and to being invited back into her life and
Right.
into her house.
That's it.
And to be a family.
Yes. Okay, so you added a couple of components, and that's okay. But now canceling that, that's the first step. Now remember, this Harvard research says in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, 9 bits of data come to conscious awareness. So it's kind of like, I use it kind of metaphorically, not literally.
That really hurts. That really hurts to cancel that goal. That really, I feel a little pain.
Well, here's my offering. What it's doing is it's showing you your hurt. If you will breathe and hold love present with that hurt, you're processing or dissolving that hurt. The hurt's been there all along. You just live above it and live so you don't have to look there. That's what virtually everybody in the world is doing. And by so doing, you're being run by the past, right back to the event that happened to a 3-year-old. Now you're consciously going into those hidden parts of your mind, and you're touching into, and this is the reason why a lot of people don't want to do it, because there's a lot of unresolved pain in there, and much of it is generational. So breathe into it. And now, okay, so that's 5A. There's a second step. When you realize that what you're opening is this huge can of worms, here I am sitting on top of it with a 9-bit processor. How do I process this can of worms? You can't. But what Yeshua taught 2,000 years ago is that there's a power within you that was called Ruka Dekudsha. If you look down at the bottom of the worksheet and the definitions, you'll see the definition of Ruka Dekudsha. It's a feminine elemental force in you that undoes the effects of your errors and teaches you the truth. The fact that this is the first time you've gone into that part of your mind, Gina, means that you have probably got lifetimes of generations of trauma around family and sexuality and closeness and being kicked out and not being accepted. Lifetimes of it. And I mean, how do I figure that out? How do I deal with that? You don't. You can't. It's not possible. But here's what you can do. There's a power in you that knows how to move that energy. In Aramaic, it was called Ruka Dekudsha. Now, you have free will. It will never interfere with your free will. But 5B is where you invite that power. You give it permission. So 5B, I invite, and we have the words Ruka Dekudsha there. That's the feminine elemental force. We could say it's the super processor. I usually just short form it in that blank of Ruka. So once I've canceled my goal, then I invite Ruka, and there's several things I'm going to ask for help with. 1, to incline me toward healing. 2, to restore me to my newborn essence, love. 3, to heal my denial and my capacity to generate the emotion of what you identified up in number 1B, that anxiety. I'm asking that power to help me open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove the denied, dissociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based memory. So what you're doing is you're creating a space by canceling the goal, collapsing perception in on itself, exposing who knows what. You're not going to try to figure that out. You're not going to try to do that all yourself. You invite that power to go to work in you and to handle those things for you. And in the most amazing ways, you'll see shifts that are unfathomable in any other fashion. So you've done the step of canceling. So now I'm going to suggest that you do number 5B, and you fill that blank in with whatever. Again, I use Ruka. You might call it the higher power, the superconscious, the subconscious, the primordial X, God, the Holy Spirit, whatever you understand as a higher power, something that's bigger than you that can move that energy.
So I invite in the Ruka Dekudsha, Jesus Christ, God, Source, Holy Spirit, to incline me towards healing.
You're going to cover all the bases, right? Good.
Yeah, and I invite in my true love essence as well, and restore me to my newborn essence of love.
Yes.
Please heal my denial and capacity to generate the emotion of anxiety and
Everybody hear the change in their voice tone?
Really?
Mm-hmm. Really? Wait till you go back and listen to the video of it.
Help me open a direct conscious relationship with and gently remove the denied, disassociated, and projected parts of my carbon-based reality.
And breathe. Just hold to love and breathe there. And I'll just offer, when you read that word, you're reading disassociated. The word's actually dissociated. They are two slightly different things. So I'm just saying that whatever I've separated from in myself, I'm willing to bring it back into awareness. And just breathe and be with that for a moment. And it may come back to cancel the goal again. I cancel my need for my daughter to invite me into her life and be family again. And I invite that power to just move me through all of this. Now, you might be able to sit when you're sitting privately doing this, and you might sit with that process for an hour, just breathing and letting the energy move. Or it might be over in 30 seconds. You know, I have people who do this worksheet and they give themselves 5 minutes to do it. And you can do a worksheet in 5 minutes. You don't have to sit around and hang around. But with something as big as what you're dealing with here, you might sit with that energy and just breathe into it. And I mean, you may have all kinds of awarenesses that move in you as you breathe and let that go.
What
So
do
go ahead.
you mean by dissociated then?
Okay, you'll remember way back in the beginning, we talked about when I deny, and denial, our definition of denial is when I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of something inside of me. So I say, you made me angry. So in order for my mind to hallucinate a lie that you made me angry, I have to hide the real cause of my anger. I have to dissociate from it. I have to shut it down. I put it in a box where I can no longer access it. That's what we're talking about with dissociation.
Now, is that the same as disassociation?
No, as I say, they're two totally different things. No. Dissociate, the only thing you need to know at this point is dissociation is what I do when I tell myself the lie that something else causes this in me. And in order to hallucinate the lie that proves that they're the problem in my life, I have to dissociate. I have to hide the fact that this relates to my 3-year-old sexual abuse experience. So I'm asking to have that opened. Disassociation is what happens to people when they become extremely traumatized and they disconnect from their bodies, they go somewhere else. It might have happened when you were 3. The experience might have been so painful that you disassociated from your own body, from your own mind, from your own experience.
Exactly, and that was the whole idea behind it, to do that. And to create different personalities.
Right. So that's disassociation. Here we're talking about dissociation, which is just hiding the pieces I don't want to look at in myself. And now we're saying, I'm willing now to stop hiding. I'm willing to look at the truth. I'm willing to process all of that energy.
On the worksheet, there's a little arrow to the right.
Okay, correct.
Okay, are you going to talk about that?
So I'm restoring me to my newborn essence. And actually with our time, we probably don't have the space to really get into that, but the sentence carries on, restore me to my newborn essence, but also Rachma, when they said to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, what's most important in the law? He didn't say love your neighbor, love God as yourself. In Aramaic, he used this word Rachma. Have Rachma, which is a filter in the frontal lobes of the brain that is a gateway for your human life, your created human essence love, to enter into your form. He said that's most important to having a human life.
Okay, but you're not going to discuss that much. Okay, that's fair enough.
Okay.
Okay.
So now in number 10A,
6.
as you should just be with yourself, how do you feel?
6 is 6.
Sick as in SICK?
No, number 6, as in number 6.
Oh, pardon me. Yes. I'm looking at a different numbering system. Right. So number 6, how do you feel?
I now feel quite peaceful.
Nice. Yeah, when you opened that and you kind of went into, gee, where am I? What am I doing? You were processing massive energetic dynamics inside of you. And that's the idea of this worksheet. And I don't have to, and it won't be of any use to try to figure that out. All I want to do when it comes is hold to the presence of love and breathe and let it come. And each time you cancel a goal, you'll enter into a new level of processing what's in your unconscious. And doing that is the forgiveness process in Aramaic, as taught by Yeshua. This is how you do forgiveness, step by step. So you're feeling at peace. And then number 1B, about number 1. So if you look back now and think about your daughter, what becomes clear to you about your daughter?
I always struggle with this part of the worksheets. So about Lauren, I see that there's so much pain and trauma in my family line. And that's just being played out.
Yeah. So notice you don't have any struggle with that at all. That's just a story you make up, that I have to struggle. You don't have to struggle anymore. And notice that instead of all the stuff you had up at the top, you've processed through a lot of that. It doesn't mean there aren't going to be more layers of it, and more. Some of those layers might be identical. But notice the insight is, here's your daughter, as you did, a young woman, trying to process through who knows how much generational insanity and cultural insanity. And that's a powerful insight that will give you a space where you can hold your daughter in deeper compassion. And compassion is an aspect of love. It's an aspect of our being. And when you can hold her in deeper compassion, you'll be able to hold yourself and everybody else in deeper compassion.
Well, but this is why I'm so worried about my grandson. But I want to heal this. It stops now. It stops with me, Michael.
Okay. So this is it. You're healing it. You are. It isn't I want to. You are healing it. You just move through a giant chunk of it. And what I get is your intuition is saying that there's a piece of work to do with your grandson. So again, here's your hydra effect. Make a note. I'm going to do some worksheets around the generational trauma that my grandson's carrying. And I'm going to become a support for his healing so he doesn't have to do this like I did, like my daughter did.
I wouldn't know where to begin to do work.
Whoa. That's a story you tell yourself, dear heart. Remember you told me how difficult these are? See how simple it is? You know exactly what to do. Here it is. That's it. That's it. That's all you have to do. You know exactly what to do. Put the pen to the paper. Follow the steps. Oh, this worksheet, the object of attention is my grandson. I have fear about it. So number 1A, I, Gina, who am love, am experiencing fear that my mind shows me is about my grandson. What's my thought about my grandson? Oh, how will he ever do this? Here's how he'll do it, dear heart. You'll do your work and you'll support him changing his life and you'll teach it to him. You'll probably be the first person in your bloodline ever to be able to hand that gift to your future generations. Doesn't get better than that. Doesn't get better than that. Because if you didn't choose to do your work, you might get to go visit, you might get to be invited into the house, and that old trauma will be triggered and you'll go back raging and screaming, and he'll go into another level of trauma as grandma runs out the door and he realizes that even grandma brings trauma into his life. Instead, you'll walk in as a centered, focused, healing woman, and you'll teach him how to be a healing man, and you'll change your bloodline forever. So I'm going to invite you to give up the story that you don't know what to do. Whenever you say to yourself, I don't know what to do, pick up the worksheet. The steps are here. There's nothing to figure out. You just follow the steps and you'll do what you just did in the last hour and a half or 2 hours. Okay? Does that make sense?
You finish shouting at me.
No, I just want to be really clear and cut through this unconscious story that you tell yourself about how you don't know. I can guarantee you had a power person that over and over and over again told you you didn't know and you never would. And my offering is you do know. You know exactly. You just did a powerful piece of work. You'll have many more of those to do. And again, notice you can go to our website, whyagain.org. There are thousands of hours of conversations like this one in our archives from our radio show. And if you come across a question, you can Skype into the show and you can ask me personally and ask my wife, Jeannie, personally, 5 days a week from 1 till 2 o'clock Eastern time. Any question that you've got. And anybody on this call or anybody in the world that wants to do that, you're welcome to do it. That's why we're there. And we've been doing that for the last 11 years to support you in being able to step through those things. But my focal point is to invite you to give up the story that you don't know, you now know. Whatever it is that's based in pain, upset, or trauma, you now know exactly what to do. Here it is. Put the pen to the paper and watch it change.
Yes, Papa.
It works.
So what's the next step? What's 6C?
Okay. So now now that I'm processing through trauma associated with these goals, I want to ask myself a question. Looking at the goal in number 3 that I identified for my daughter, I want her to let me in, invite me into her world. Ask a time to be shown when you have not invited someone into your world. Has that ever happened in your life?
When I have not fulfilled inviting someone into my world.
Like, did you ever kick your daughter out, or your son, or your mother, or your spouse, or? Breathe. Notice you're holding your breath. This is how we hide from ourselves. You want a hand? You want a hand?
A hint. Sorry, what did you ask me? Do I want to what?
You want a hint?
A hint. Well, when she was born, I tried to take my life. And I tried to take hers as well.
You see how it's interesting. In a lot of religious traditions, they have beads. You know, the Catholic tradition has the rosary, the Buddhists have the beads. Beads are a symbol that helps the mind when you go from one bead to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, to go drop down into the unconscious. Notice what you just got to acknowledge and look at, maybe for the first time since that happened. What age is your daughter now? How many years has she been circling the planet?
She'd be 32 this year.
So notice that you're back to when 32 years ago you tried to end both of your lives. And that needs to be processed. And that's probably a reflection of a dynamic that's been going on in your family system for a long time. Suicide. Are there any suicides in your family system?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Oh, good, good.
I just wanted out of the pain, and I didn't want to leave her motherless in a world full of suffering.
Yeah, yeah. So there's another place where you just want to breathe, hold love present, and just let that surface. You know, whatever the thoughts are, whatever the feelings are, whatever the emotions are that come, you want to just breathe and observe them, be with them, and just let that energy move. Again, in this work, processing, healing is the ability to hold love conscious, active, and present when something less than love surfaces. And you just touched into another big one. I'd make a note. There are some more worksheets to do around that desire to kill yourself and your daughter. That's a powerful admission to make to yourself. And notice that everybody in this space right now is here to support you holding the space. And probably several people are processing that similar dynamic when it happened in their lives. And hopefully they're breathing, and maybe some tears are moving and emotions. And the invitation is, you know, oftentimes you think, oh, I have to figure this out. I have to do something about it. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just be with it, breathe, and hold love present, and just let it move. The breath and that presence of love will dissolve what's under the surface. Does that fit and make sense? How are you doing?
Well, when you talked about the symptoms of healing and depression, that's brought on the depression that I was feeling at the time.
Yeah. You're going to have to process through that energy. And again, processing means I allow it to come, I breathe, and I hold to the space of love. I keep bringing love present. I keep bringing love present. And then the final step, number 7, a principle of the universe is that by giving, I first get the original. So one of the things to do is to go into gratitude here. Gratitude is a powerful healing force. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to heal. I choose truth and perfect love. Like I'm always willing to go for and look at the truth. I mean, you've looked at, I would venture to say that today you've probably looked at more truthfully at what's going on in your own mind than probably you have in your whole life. Would that be an accurate statement, looking at all the things you just uncovered and just put out there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's powerful. And you don't have to figure it out. Just keep bringing the love present and keep your breath moving. When the breath shuts down, that's what locks the energy in. When I breathe, that's what opens and frees me from it. And it's the freeing of that energy that is forgiveness.
I was in so much despair at that time. I didn't know any other way out.
I hear you.
Yeah, I didn't know.
It's really insane that these tools have been known for over 2,000 years and they were disappeared. So what we're committed to doing with this work, why when Yinka said, Michael, would you come and do this? I said, yes, is we're committed to making it available on a global scale. I actually have a fellow who used to book my workshops. This is way back in the early days, probably 40 years ago. And he used to say to other people when he'd introduce me, he'd say, if Michael got a chance, he'd do a workshop in a phone booth. And that's just about true. If there's another set of ears that's ready to listen, we'll talk about these principles. Because I don't know when the person who's going to be the critical mass shift that changes the whole planet is who that person's going to be. Maybe it's you tonight. Maybe it's this group tonight. I don't know. But we just changed the energy on planet Earth tonight. The work you did. There's a powerful thought in A Course in Miracles that says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do. You've done some powerful work tonight. Your family system is going to change as a result of it, and so is the world.
I've got tears.
Yeah. I'm with you. So we're breathing with you. And it's not just you that you did this work for. This is all of us that are listening right now.
So I am grateful, very grateful. I'm grateful for these tears that are long overdue, and I am very grateful for this opportunity to heal. I am.
Sweet.
And I choose truth and perfect love.
And then you're going to talk to, in this case, number 1C, which is your daughter. Based in number 3, again, around this issue of not being allowed in her life.
So I choose, I choose truth about 1C. So what was 1C again?
Right. So we're going on now to the bold letters in this last step.
Yeah. What was 1C again? Oh, the anxiety.
So look at the bold letters. It starts out with number 1C, comma. So that's the invitation. Now we're going to go back and we're going to talk to your daughter again.
Okay.
So Lauren, based on this issue of not being allowed in your life, I structure a truly loving goal toward you and offer you. So what is a goal based around this issue that you could set for yourself toward your daughter?
So based on this issue of not being allowed in your life,
what would be a goal you might set for yourself in action toward her?
Which was 3 was my goal based
That's
on
your goal. Yeah. So based on that situation, what would be a goal you could set for yourself, a behavior and activity you'll do toward her?
I structure a truly loving goal.
What would that goal be?
And offer to you, I offer to you peace and love and healing.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I'd suggest maybe adding that, Lauren, every time I think of you, I'm just going to flood my cellular structure with love and extend that love toward you. So if you were to never speak to her again, cancel that thought. But if that were the outcome, I suggest a commitment, something along the lines of being in that space of love with her. And whenever I think of you, what I'm committed to doing is flooding my structure with love and extending that love toward you.
And also towards my grandchildren.
And towards your, yes, absolutely.
And what did you say? Sending it to her, transmitting?
The word I used was extending it to her.
Oh, extending.
And that would be that as I flood my own structure with the presence of my life force, my being, which is love, I'm going to visualize energetically that love extending out from my structure to hers, wherever she is in the world.
I visualize. Is that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to flood my physiology with the presence of my being, with the presence of love. And then I'm going to visualize extending that love out in her direction and the direction of my grandchildren. And breathe and hold love present. And that's forgiveness. That's what forgiveness produces. Breathing with you, dear heart.
Oh.
Good breath. That's what you need. That's where the release happens, right there.
That was heavy.
Mm-hmm. That's a giant piece of work, young lady.
I know. I know. Wow.
Congratulations. And thank you for being willing to demonstrate that for all of us. And we'll have this video. You can go back and listen to it, pick up every little nuance that shows you what other work you've got to do. And it'll be a powerful example for everybody that ever watches it.
I don't know how I feel. I feel more peace. I definitely feel more peace.
Good.
But I feel a lot of heaviness and despair around that time when she was born.
Yeah. So that's something you're going to need to process out. That's an energy you've been carrying for 30 plus years. Time to be finished with it. And to be finished with it, again, what's healing look like? I allow that which is hidden in my unconscious to come forward in the presence of active love, and I breathe. And that's what dissolves it. That's what removes it. And it's the removal of that trauma that is forgiveness. Forgiveness has got nothing to do with, oh, this is all your fault, but I'll let you off the hook for what's happening inside of me. Forgiveness is, I'm going to go inside, face what's happening inside of me, and transmute it through the active presence of love and breathing.
Well, this went a long way just from a bit of anxiety, right? Didn't it? So what?
And that's what's under the surface. You know, if there's a reason why people don't want to do this process, it's because they don't want to delve into that kind of stuff and deal with it. But here's the point I'd like to make. You're always dealing with whatever's there. In one case, it's unconscious, so it's being carried around as this load and bag of garbage, and literally it is the cause of disease in our tissue structure where it's being carried. But you don't get to not carry it just because you hide it from yourself. You're still carrying it, and that load is unbearable long term. So you get to do that, or you get to cancel the goals that help you to keep things hidden, and you get to open the veil, and you get to go, and now I'm going to hold love present. I'm going to just stay with this and breathe and be with what moves. And
Wow.
as it moves, you might make notes of other work you see, other places where this is linked, other hydra issues might come up, and just be with it and process through it.
You see, all my life, that's all I've wanted is that goal in 3 from people. Sorry, can you go back to that other page again, Yinka, please? That mass cancelling.
Well, actually, we've got one more step to do, and that's what it is. So let's look at the box on the right-hand side there. You can draw your feelings there again if you want.
Where's it gone?
Is it this one?
I've lost it. There it is.
Okay, I want to look at the box that says draw your feelings now.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
Okay.
So draw my feelings now. Okay.
Yeah. And then beneath that, notice it says, and here's a new commitment to make. I commit to love, to living a human life. To help achieve this, I do a mass canceling of all the times I wanted number 1 from someone.
Number 1. Number
Or
3.
pardon me, number 3, pardon me, from someone. So as you just said, all my life, that's all I've ever wanted from people.
Yeah, it's all I've ever wanted from people, to be let in.
Yes.
And to
So
love
now,
them.
so now here's where you see that where the line that says initials. Now you write the initials of everybody you've ever held that goal for or toward.
Right.
You cancel it's like you've now got the ball rolling down the hill. The energy's moving. Now cancel the goal that you had for mom to have that for you, for dad, for big brother, for big sister, for that friend from high school, for that friend in kindergarten, for that first lover. Just do a mass canceling of every time you've ever wanted that particular goal achieved, and you'll just keep opening and opening and opening and processing out all those lifetimes of trauma.
So list all the people in this point now.
Yeah, just by initials, and each one that you bring to mind. Oh yeah, I really wanted that from my mom, so I cancel my need for mom to let me in. I cancel my need for dad to let me in. I remember that college friend. Oh, I cancel my need for Mary to have let me in. And you do a mass canceling of every time in your life when you've wanted that from someone. And you've now completed a worksheet. This is how forgiveness is done.
I'm speechless. My picture, by the way, is my stick woman with a heart on her chest now. Not
Nice, nice.
Heart on my chest.
Awesome.
You know,
there's a woman who lives at Heartland actually, and she's a kindergarten grade 1 teacher, or was. She's retired now, and she's taught in Dayton, Ohio. She wrote a book called Healing Children, Loving Children that we publish. And the piece that you're seeing on the screen right now that Yink has put up is what she took to kindergarten and grade 1 kids to assist them to do the piece of work that you've just done. So she was doing this level of work with kindergartners in grade 1. And here's what she was teaching them, if you read this along with me. Who am I?
Who am I?
I am somebody.
I'm
bright,
capable, and loving. I am
lovable. Notice you changed the word. I am bright, capable, and...
Oh, I am bright, capable, and lovable.
Yeah.
I am teachable. I learn easily. I tell the truth. I am a gentle listener. I respect myself and others. I am cooperative and responsible for my feelings and choices. I see the highest and best in myself and others, and I support that with my thoughts, words, and actions. I use time wisely because it's valuable. I am the best I can be each day. I am somebody. I am love.
How do you suppose each of our lives would have gone if when we were 5 and went into kindergarten, we had a teacher that taught us that?
Oh, why don't they teach this in schools? They should, but they don't. They teach rubbish like maths and English.
Well, we're working on getting that into schools. That's part of our project in making this teaching and this work available to every mind, heart, and being on the planet. If you want to support it getting into a school, then order a copy of the book and send it to a teacher and invite them to use it.
You just say the name of the book again.
Yes, the book is Healing Children, Loving Children.
And it's by?
Julie Haverstick. It's in the catalog on our website. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to grab a copy of it.
I want to write that statement down. That's not on the worksheet, is it?
That's in there, just about 2.
It's quite a long statement, though, to write down, isn't it?
Yes. So here's what Julie used to do. And the reason I brought that up with Julie Haverstick is when children came into her kindergarten and grade 1 classroom, she would have them draw a picture of themselves. And this is a typical picture that a kindergartner or grade 1 child would draw.
Sorry, Michael, you
excuse me. So this is a typical picture that a grade 1 or kindergarten classroom child would draw. They'd be handed a full set of colored markers or pens or pencils. And this is the typical picture before working with these tools. This is the picture that's typical after they worked with these tools and Mrs. Haverstick. She taught them the forgiveness process. She taught them the who am I. Her book is Healing Children, Loving Children. There are lesson plans that go all the way through. You want to put this in a school system? Get a copy, hand it to a teacher. Get 2 copies, hand 1 to a teacher, and read it and work with them to do it.
But
She's got it all laid out.
I drew a picture with a heart in my chest as well, a stick.
That's what made me think of getting the book. There's exactly what the kids would typically draw. They go from this
to
this.
And we've done this in one session.
Yes, ma'am.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.
And what you've accomplished in this one session is typical. And you're not finished. Be patient with yourself. You uncovered a number of hydras. Go willingly into that work and just clean it up. And your grandchildren will appreciate you forever. And your parents and your grandparents and their parents will appreciate you, because that healing will extend backward to them as well.
Well, I hope I can commit to it, Michael, because it takes commitment, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, you don't have to hope. All you have to do is make a commitment.
I know.
Awesome piece of work, young lady.
I am committed to my healing. I am 100% committed to my healing. This is why I'm in Yinka's group. And thank you ever so much, Yinka and Michael and everyone, for all your love and holding the space for me. I'm really grateful for this amazing opportunity. I'm obviously ready.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Yinka, for opening the space for this.
Yeah, and I want to say a big, massive thank you to Michael for doing this as well, because when I first read this book, I knew I had to come to the book club. That was like, for me, the missing piece of being able to open a space like this. So huge, huge thank you. And if anybody wants to show appreciation, I asked for donations to go to Michael tonight, and, you know, to support him in continuing this as well for everybody. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beyond a relatively meager lifestyle, everything that comes in financially, this work goes into what's the next project. And remember, you can download the app, the commitment, the I Am Love, that whole thing, that's available in the app. Just go to your app store, type in Heartland, Heartland, one word, Aramaic, Aramaic, forgiveness. Download the app. You can do the worksheets right there. It's a totally private app. We specifically designed it so it only asks for one permission. You know, we don't ask, can we operate your camera and send text and control your dialing? There's one permission, and the only permission is, can the app use the internet in order to power itself? That's the only permission required. If when you do a worksheet, you choose to print it, of course, it has to be saved somewhere, so it'll ask for a second permission. Can I save it to your hard drive? But otherwise, it's a totally private act. So, you know, you can put anything in there you want, and you'll be the only one that can see it.
Thank you.
I haven't got a printer, so I have to write it out by hand, but that's okay, you know.
You do it right. You can do it right on your phone. You don't need a printer.
No, I write it. I write it in my book.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you can download the app and you can do the worksheet process. There are two different versions of it in the app. You can do it right there on your phone. You don't even need paper. Just another option, especially for the techies.
I'll put all the details in the WhatsApp group as well for this.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Michael, how do we give you a donation, darling?
That's also in the WhatsApp group. I'll put
All right.
put the full list in. There's also
The link is there.
links in this chat as well, and the link will be in the WhatsApp group.
Sweet.
Yeah, well, thank you again, Michael. Appreciate it as always. Yeah, loving learning all this stuff.
Okay.
Thank you.
How's our timing? Are we complete on our time frame? I haven't even looked at the clock.
Yes, we are definitely complete.
Okay. All right. Well, I was going to open for questions, but we're complete. And
Yes.
again, the second Thursday and the fourth Thursday next month, we'll be carrying on. I'll communicate with Yinka between now and then and decide what we're going to do next. Maybe write down your questions, and maybe our next session we'll do a question and answer session. Also, by the way, if you download the app on your phone, you can go any page on the app, and there's a button there you can push, and you can type your question in and hit send, and it'll come to Jeannie. We'll answer it on the radio show, and then we'll send you back the time and date we answered it on the radio show. So you don't even have to wait till then. Just download the app, ask your question in the app, and we'll address it on the radio show.
Yeah.
We're doing everything we can to make it available, as simple and easy for everybody to participate in as possible.
Can you quickly tell me the app, please? Don't have to spell it. Just tell
I'm
me.
going to put it in the WhatsApp group, so you can just be able to click on the link in the WhatsApp group.
In your app store, just type in Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness.
Right. Thank you. Yeah.
We'll go
All
straight to
Thank you. Blessings.
And just a quick
Thank
say
you.
as well, on the 5 a.m. club every Thursday, we will be putting this into practice for those that are at the 5 a.m. club.
This has been dream come true stuff, just
Yes.
for me. Yeah.
For me too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sweet.
Right. Thank you, everyone, and bye.
Thanks a
Thanks
lot.
for helping achieve our goal.
Uh-huh.